You all, on behalf of the United States Navy Institute and AFC, I'd like to welcome all of you to day 3 of our West event. We're very proud of its capacity to bring the conversation relevant to the maritime force to this audience. We are very proud today to bring another featured speaker to you. And if you came looking for Admiral Rogers, I've got Admiral Richardson for you. We are, in fact, this is a kind of an adaptability drill for us, but we are so proud and thankful that we're able to bring Admiral Richardson to you today. He is a graduate of the Naval Academy, as you know, 1982, with a degree in physics, electrical engineering as well from MIT, and a great, proud submariner who has service in the fleet, starting with the USS Parche, the George Marshall, the USS Salt Lake City. He commanded the USS Honolulu in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and from that has moved on through a succession of very important and strategic assignments with the United States Navy and the Department of Defense. I first got to know Admiral Richardson when he joined us at Joint Forces Command, where he was a Director of Strategy and Plans and brought very remarkable insight to an important part of the joint business. He is here with us today to talk about the design for maintaining maritime superiority, a very important strategic framework and document for the United States Navy. He is with us to also talk and take questions. So what we're going to do is quickly move from me to him and thank him, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us today, Admiral Richardson.
Thanks, sir. Thank you so much. So I guess I'm on. I can hear myself reverberate. So this is how this went down. I was here last night, and I had some meetings in one of the rooms in the conference center here, and there was this room right next to mine. The door was shut, and it was clear that, there was a meeting going on behind that door, and it was not going well. All right, you could just the door was vibrating a little bit, and you could hear a lot of yelling going on behind there. And, something about, hey, it's not my fault, and somebody's yelling, hey, we cannot open this conference with 2 blanks in terms of the opening speaker. So, the first morning, Admiral Davidson was down. Now we've got Admiral Rogers. You could feel the finger on the chest pumping. Right? This cannot happen. And I kind of was tentative around the door, and then it was clear, get out there and fix this. And so I started scurrying off. And then out of that door comes a steaming and charging Admiral Daly, right? And he looks around, and he's like, Richardson! And I hadn't got away fast enough. And it was sort of that classic thing, you don't want to be in the command passageway when the CO's stateroom door opens and the XO comes steaming out, you're just hooked. And so with that, that is the dignified way in which I come to you this morning. All right? But it shows you where the real power lies here, too, right? There's the Navy, but then there's the Naval Institute. And so we all know where our bread is buttered. Hey, look, despite all that, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here together with you today because it's just a chance to continue to sharpen our thinking together. Which is, somebody described it today, hey, that design for maintaining maritime superiority, it's a nice sort of way to put out some commander's guidance. And as I've always thought about commander's guidance, it's only the first step to issue the actual thing. And then the way you fully understand it is by having a dialogue. And you run it, through all sorts of trials, and you ask questions. Because at its very best, we're all going to go off to our far corners of the world, and we're going to move together in a coordinated but independent and decentralized fashion. And we're going to run into situations that are going to challenge us. And if we want to execute the mission and move things forward, we're going to have a pretty deep understanding of that guidance, right? It's not going to be so huge that it'll cover every eventuality, every challenge. It can't possibly foresee all of that. But by understanding what is in each other's heads, will get a better vision about how to manage all of those fleeting opportunities, how to manage all of those challenges. And so I look forward to getting through, my opening remarks quickly, and I'm very interested in hearing kind of what's on your mind in terms of questions. Plus, I only got signed up to this thing at like 1700 or 1800 last night. My prepared remarks here, done on the bedside table of my hotel room, and I know that I'll disappoint everybody that I did not have an opportunity to put together a PowerPoint presentation, and so there's that. Plus, if you want to read anything, just in terms of preparation, Jen Steele. Jen, I saw you here. Where are you? There, back there, yeah. Nice article in the San Diego Union Tribune, and except for that, what did you call me, a nutty professor or something in there, Jen? Something like that. Anyway, and then before I open it up for questions, I do want to add on to everybody else, I'm sure, who has just remarked about how this AFCEA West Conference has really come of age. And, for those of us who have been doing this for a while, when it started, it was really, truly a tech conference. And you could come here and you would, the booths and everything were much more about how to connect this fiber optic thing to that fiber optic thing. And now it's all of that, but it does all that in a much more strategic and operational context. And so, my compliments to AFCEA and the Naval Institute for really making this a world-class event. And so why don't we give that team a round of applause. So the intent with this design, and I hope many of you have had a chance to take a look at it, is to talk about how to move the naval forces forward. And I say naval because all along the way, we had our Marine Corps brothers and sisters right with us. It is, a Navy document, but if you read in there, it talks about naval warfare in many, many places. In fact, the process of bringing it together was, I wanted to be as inclusive as possible. And so we started literally putting it together after I was confirmed, and we were working up to when I relieved Admiral John Greener. And so we did that on September 18th, and literally on the 19th, we got together with the 4 stars and we started talking about the ideas and the design. And, we scheduled a meeting on Saturday morning in the Pentagon, and we had scheduled about 90 minutes. I figured people would want to move out and get back home, et cetera. And about 4.5 hours later, we finally disbanded. And it was just the energy in that room in terms of how are we going, thinking about how we're going to address our challenges moving forward was really just tremendous. And the thinking in the design started there, and it was made so much more inclusive and broad and sharper by virtue of the participation of all of those leaders. And so we incorporated all of that, and the next iteration we sort of moved out to the 3-star community. It got stronger still. We included our civilian leadership along with that, so it was uniform and civilian. And then sometime in November, we opened up the discussion to the 1 and 2 stars. And so, one thing that people have come up and commented on to me is how well everybody's sort of gotten it, if you will. And that as, the speakers have come through here, there's been, a piece of that they have attached to and reinforced exactly, again, what you want somebody to do with commander's guidance. And I think a lot of that is because everybody's DNA is in this document, right? We were sharpening it and making it better up until the last minute. And so they were part of writing it. I had the privilege to sign it, but it's really the Navy's design. And it talks about a couple of things that it takes a little bit of a different approach. Often the temptation is in this very competitive environment, this security environment, the temptation is to talk about all the competitors, the allies' potential threats, et cetera. And it just struck me that the character of the competition itself has changed. And if we are not responsive to that, no matter how hard we try, we're just never going to be able to reach our potential, and worse, we may fall behind our competitors. And so that would be sort of the unforgivable sin in my mind. And so we've got to change the character of the way we do business, really in response to what I describe as three forces. One is, this maritime system, traffic on and under the seas, including the sea floor, access to resources, et cetera, for a number of reasons. That's really booming. Maritime traffic, shipping has increased by a factor of 4 since 1990, and so you just see this explosion of maritime traffic fueling the world's economy, which has just shy of doubled in that same period of time. So that's one force. The other force is this information system, which is changing everything that we do. Including in the maritime domain. And so we've got to be responsive to that. And then the third force is the rate at which technology is being introduced. And they're all interrelated, but and it's not just information technologies. It's genetic technologies. It's 3D manufacturing. It's or additive manufacturing. It's all of those things. Artificial intelligence. That's going to change the way that we do business as well. And you just sort of sense this, this pace is quickening, and if we're not quickening along with it, we could, sports analogy, we could have the best roster in the NFL, defensive players, but if we can't keep up with the no-huddle offense, we're just going to be out of position. We're going to be called for too many men on the field. We're going to be coming and going, and we will never be set for when the ball is snapped and the play is underway. And so it's not just the competitors, but it's also the character of the game itself that has changed, and we need to change with it. I would like to highlight a couple things in terms of addressing that. One that I think is very important, particularly as you think about decentralized operations, that all rides on a foundation of trust and confidence. And so we gain trust and confidence in one another because we have in great part, because we have a shared value system. And so we spent some time camping out on that in the design, and we talk about some core attributes that would help us make sure that our behaviors align with our values. And so, attributes like initiative, accountability, toughness, those things are very important to us, and we need to make sure that we spend some time inculcating those in our force. And then we talk about 4 lines of effort. One is strengthening our naval power at and from the sea, and at, very important word here, and I think Admiral Roden talked about this idea of, we need to get back into the business of sea control. There's a line of effort that talks about continuing to strengthen our Navy team of sailors, civilians, and their families. There is a line of effort that talks about partnerships, and this is a great partnership opportunity, right? We talk about partnerships. Certainly, the Navy has to act as a good partner within the joint force, but also partners with industry, partnerships with academia, partnerships, certainly international partnerships. So there's a number of partnering opportunities as we expand and strengthen that network of partnerships. And then there's this line of effort that talks about just the need to learn faster, right? High velocity learning. And that again is, our call to arms, if you will, to keep up with the pace of the world today. And so, by virtue of, on a foundation of values strengthened by these core attributes, these 4 lines of effort, that's how we're going to get after it. And so I think that I'll just leave it at that. and I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have. And thank you for the opportunity to fill in. I see there's a lot of young active duty people, and so I know that there's free food somewhere in the hood, in the house, and so maybe everybody's had that cup of coffee and can give me a fastball. Okay, well, thank you very much. It's been
Admiral.
yeah.
Admiral, throughout the course of the conference here, there's been a lot of push and explanation, talk about information warfare and how it makes the Navy strategy and design plan work. Casual reading in the newspaper says American people really concerned about the Department of Defense being able to protect them from terrorism and cyber, those threats. I'm curious, in a big picture way, how you see the Navy relating to the American people and defending them in that environment so that the American people feel closer to their Navy.
Yeah, well, I think that's always a challenge, right? And it's important to understand that, since our founding, America has, in terms of the closeness with the Navy, America has been a maritime nation. And, it's 90% or plus of our trade today still travels over the sea. With respect to that information environment, I think it's 97%, Jan and Twig can correct me, of that information travels via undersea cables. And so you start to see right there that in terms of national prosperity, right? Let's just put security aside for right now. The prosperity of the country is just linked, inextricably linked to the seas. And so, in terms of maintaining those sea lines open, both from a trade standpoint and an information standpoint, we got to continue to try and tell that story of the role that the Navy plays in that. With respect to the particular threats that you mentioned, the cyber threat, we're putting a tremendous amount of effort into. We got organized for success here. This is a very, very fast-moving problem, but we are, I think, structured now. We've gone through sort of an assessment phase called the Task Force Cyber Awakening, and that introspection has led to a number of organizational moves that we've made. So we're getting ourselves organizationally set, and we're moving out with programs to establish some standards for security there. And I think that as I said, we're organized for success, and we've got the investments in the right place. A very fast-moving problem, also very difficult to talk about this too specifically because it gets highly classified very, very quickly. With respect to terrorism, another dimension of that is, now you're talking about, in my mind, a maritime security in a much broader sense. And it goes back to this idea of partnerships, okay? And so we want that defense of our homeland, and we want to contribute to the defense of the homeland of our allies and partners as far away from our homeland and their homeland as possible. And so you start to see the value of partners who will have insights and access and information that will be very relevant to our security, and we need to make sure that we have the processes in place to share that information, both from a policy standpoint and from a technology standpoint. And so, you can start to see that this defense begins, far away from our shores, and we contribute to the defense of our partners far away from their shores. And so, again, that line of effort that talks to partnerships is extremely important. And so the other thing that it does is highlight the fact that there are really anything that we might want to consider a regional threat is, I think, more and more a thing of the past, right? There is no such thing as a regional threat. Almost everything that anybody can do now is at least trans-regional, if not global, by virtue of these information warfare type tools, cyber being one of them. And so, again, a need for us to adapt and change, kind of the fundamental character of the way that we think about defense. So I hope I've taken a stab at your question there. Sir.
Admiral Robert Smith from Office of Naval Research. Arguably, there's no one more creative than an American sailor and a Marine. Juxtapose that with the federal budget process, acquisition regulations. How do we improve the business of the mission?
The business of the mission.
How do we make decisions quicker than the 2-year federal budget process?
Well, I think there's a lot of ways, and I think that we're in a nice window of opportunity. So, we've just dropped our budget, right? And inside that includes an initiative that we're calling the Rapid Prototyping and Experimentation Division. And so there's an effort that sort of takes a bit of a different approach to getting at some of these ideas in a much more rapid, innovative way, if you will. And so, the first step is we're going to bring together kind of a body of technical experts so that when we get an urgent need or when we see an opportunity that may not be in response to an urgent need statement but would be really helpful to the warfighter, we've got a broad enough perspective to make sure that we're not missing some element of a technological or operational solution to that problem. And so, broad representation in terms of how to get after these solutions. And then I would argue that if you've got some kind of funding available, not a tremendous amount, right? We'll start small and it'll be, appropriately mitigated risk, but we'll have some funding that we can bring these ideas together, prototype them quickly. To your point about the creativity of our sailors and Marines, get it out in their hands as quickly as we can, do some fleet experimentation early on in the life cycle of these programs. We'll get to a much more rugged and robust solution much more quickly, and then we'll transition into a program of record or something much more efficiently. Similarly, so that's kind of how to get things started, and then you would want to hand it off to a resource sponsor or something. There's also, we're trying to create this this speed lane, if you will, for those types of programs that are sufficiently mature and can move fast enough so that we, can get those through the wickets a little bit faster. And so the Air Force has a program, the Rapid Capabilities Office, and you may have heard of that. So we're standing up our own version of that. You're going to love this. It's called MACO. Right, the Maritime Accelerated Capabilities Office. And that'll be kind of an acceleration from cradle to grave for the program, so a fast way to do that. So I'm hopeful that we're going to have some vigorous discussions. As you know, the 16 Authorization Act gave the service chiefs a few more authorities with respect to the acquisition business. This is how I intend to exercise those authorities to not only bring discipline to acquisition, more discipline. It's not completely undisciplined now. And, but also to address this idea of speed and find out if we can't do things a little faster. Okay? Thanks. Sir.
Thank you, Admiral. Sergeant Edon from the Marine Corps Information Operations Center. Coming back from this last deployment with the SXR MUD, we had excellent integration, synchronization, and coordination between the IWC and our IO elements. However, I believe that there's some unexploited opportunities in the information operations, operational preparation of the environment. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that the Navy Marine Corps team has unique capabilities in our placement and access to conduct OPE activities, or will those authorities always be outside of the general purpose force?
Okay. Yes. I believe that the Navy Marine Corps team has tremendously unique opportunities and access to do those things that you're doing. And so I don't really see it as too much a problem with authorities. I don't think that those are really at the root of exploiting those opportunities. So, what you've really highlighted for me, though, is, when we talk about high velocity learning, there is a temptation, I think, to say, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to hang out here. I got it. Let's see, it's, February 19th. When do I get my high velocity learning kit? And it's not coming, right? But what we're going to do is take folks like you, we're going to harness that creativity of the sailor and Marine, and we're going to ask questions just like you asked. You came back from deployment. A lot of things went right, but here's something that we can improve on. So now, let's cover down on that. What can we do to make that situation better with respect to operational preparation of the environment, right? That is our next challenge. How do we articulate that challenge? How do we organize to answer that so that the next deployment out has got at least a first step towards an answer to that challenge, right? And we'll have kind of our best guess at a solution and a prediction in terms of what we expect, and then we'll go execute. And we'll measure our actual performance versus our prediction, and we'll learn from that step, right? And you can just see this learning cycle of, hey, prediction, measurement, comparison, adjustment, and we get smarter over time. And so, make sure you kind of continue to provide that feedback. Don't be constrained by what you may think are authoritative types of things. Let's just get better. And the next deployment goes out, by virtue of your observations, will be stronger than the one that you went on, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ma'am.
Good morning, sir. My name is Teresa Duvall. I'm from Fleet Cyber Command. So I'd just like your thoughts on this.
I'm going to point your question right over here.
I know she's my boss.
I know that.
So now I'm asking this question.
Okay.
We want to enhance our sailors' experience at sea, and we employ social media for the freedom of information flow. How do you balance that against the acting as a responsible network citizen, and the need to take the system down and those limitations on our system?
What do you mean by need to take the system down?
Well, we apply security patches. There's a need to do some, your basic block and tackle.
Yeah. So I think what you've described is sort of a fundamental tension between what you might want to call access and agility and the necessary security that we have to have resident in order to do our business. And this is one of, I think, the biggest awakenings of Task Force Cyber Awakening and those sorts of efforts is that, hey, we've got to, well, one, certainly going forward, we've got to make sure that we bake those types of security measures in. And two, we've got to look backward and say, hey, we just were maybe a little bit naive before, and we've got to go back and instill security in some of our legacy systems. So I think that's about right. Yeah. So we're kind of looking both ways, into the past and into the future to enhance our security overall. But I think we've got to keep our minds open here as well. And, one, there are just some amazingly sophisticated technologies that allow us to do that. And every time we think we've characterized, our information technology ability, we find that we're off by, a factor of 2 or 4 or 6 or something like that because it's moving so fast. And so to try and get out in front of this, you just have to read the news. I mean, there's all sorts of people struggling with online encryption and those sorts of things right now. We can use those sorts of tools to our advantage to maintain both the agility and the security of our systems. And so, Admiral Branch and Admiral Ty and the whole team are leaning forward into this. We've got to maintain security. To do so, to fail to do that would just be neglectful. But it's just as neglectful to deny ourselves the agility if we don't exploit every tool that we can to achieve that security. So, you've articulated a very nice balancing act. We're trying to strike that balance moving forward and remain secure and also agile. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks. Admiral Ty just said she wants to talk to you after this. Sir.
Morning, Admiral. Thank you for being here this morning. I have a simple 3-word question for you that I hope will provide you the widest possible latitude to answer how you see best fit. So with that and without further preamble, here it is.
Drum roll, please.
Littoral combat ship, question mark.
Yes, exclamation point.
Good morning, Admiral. I can't top that. Jim Mueller. I'm a former sailor. I live up in Monterey now. Some of the you alluded to, and the other panels have talked about alliances and training and experimenting and exercise with our allies. Some of the other panels, like yesterday, also talked about issues in the Pacific. The simple question is China coming to RIMPAC this year?
They've been invited.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Good morning, sir. Lieutenant Commander Elaine Reed, NCTS, San Diego. Just went through a Naval War College exercise where we were talking about component commanders, maritime component commanders, air component commanders. I was wondering if cyber component commanders are looking as far as being implemented into our operational chain of command and what we need to do in order to get that moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's just such a great question, and it's, I think, part of this journey that we're on as we mainstream information warfare. I mean, that's called out, right, by name in the design. And so you can imagine, as we had that process where we, brought the entire Navy leadership into that everybody had things that they felt strongly about, right? And they're all important. But you can imagine the prioritization that had to happen to get, first of all, I think the thing is only 8 pages long, right? And so you get down to 8 pages. Inside those 8 pages, there are 4 lines of effort, right? So, if you're a line of effort, you're pretty dang important. And inside each one of those lines of effort, there's on the order of maybe 4 to 5 specific tasks that we want to get after. And so you think that, from the highest priority, we're talking about 20 things that we want to get after in terms of moving our Navy forward. And information warfare is called out as one of those 20 things. And so I would be open to all those solutions. I think that this is a very rich area for experimentation as we move forward and mainstream information warfare into the way that we do business. And so I can see, right now, it's just muscle memory, right? From decades and decades of practice that we talk about undersea, we talk about surface, we talk about air. We might, depending upon the mission, talk about NECC or special warfare. And right in that cadre, I want the information warfare, commander or type commander right there, so that we start to think in all of those domains as completely equal. And then we've got to the power of the United States military, including the Navy, is that we can so effectively combine across all of those domains and bring all of the multi-domain power together, fully synchronized. This is what General Wood taught me at Joint Forces Command, right? That's the real secret sauce of the United States military. And so information is, it's got to be in the DNA, right? So too often right now, we kind of put this cake together and we take it out of the oven and it's like, well, shoot, we forgot the information part. So we frost it on and, we take a stab at it at the end. It's got to be in the fundamental ingredients of that thing and baked into the way that we think about warfare. And so how that all turns out from a C2 standpoint and everything, I think that's work to be determined, but what a rich area for experimentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Good morning, Admiral. My name is Lieutenant Commander Craig Allen, and I work in the Office of Defense Operations at Coast Guard Headquarters. So we were very excited when we read your design for maritime superiority. We couldn't help but notice that there was a Coast Guard cutter right in the center of the cover of the document. So
There you go.
So when we read that, we're very attentive to where the Coast Guard is going to fit in with the National Fleet, and we noticed the trend from kind of the 2007 cooperative strategy and some of the focus areas there to more recently the focus for the Navy on more of the high-end capabilities, including some high-level rudder commands to maybe focus more on those at the expense of some of the other programs. So I'm just wondering, as you look to your tenure as CNO, what do you see as the balance between maybe the high-low capability mix between the Navy, the direction that it's going, and the Coast Guard cutter fleet?
Yeah, well, I think that this kind of goes back to the partnerships aspect, right? And so, one of the things about this operational partnerships, let's talk about, whether it's Navy Coast Guard, whether it's Navy to Navy with another international partner, is that again it goes back to this flexibility that is enabled by some of these information technologies. And so, I think that there's a critical partnership between the Navy and the Coast Guard. You have authorities that we don't have, right? We can't do some of the stuff that you can do and that needs to be done. But we can enable you to do it, and you know that that's going on right now around the world, Giada South and other areas where we're using maybe Navy sensors to cue in Coast Guard platforms for kind of the end game for which only you have the authorities. And so as we think about partnering together, I want to use these information sharing policy and technology to allow everybody to fill a role up to their maximum capability. And that maximum may be set by just their technological limits. That maximum may be set by policy limits. To me, it doesn't matter. Everybody, let's just continue to play the role that we can. And if we have, a part of the solution, if you can achieve a part of the solution for maritime security, well, that's good. That's a part that somebody else doesn't have to do. And we can eliminate duplication. We can be so much more effective and agile by using this kind of fluid information environment, using the fluid environment of the seas and oceans to partner together in very innovative and agile ways, and also achieve an efficiency that I think that we might not have been able to achieve before. It was interesting, one of the first trips I made, I went to this regional sea power symposium in Italy. And Europe right now just really kind of struggling with the balance of high-low mix, as on one end of their challenges, they're dealing with this extremely challenging migrant crisis, right? And you don't need high technology to address that, but you need other very important capabilities, soft power types of capabilities to achieve that mission effectively. At the same time, you've got a resurgent Russia that is challenging them at the high end. When I was in that conference, we talked about all of that. And it was it was fantastic to be there, because at the very same time that those European navies were, I think, very adeptly managing the crisis with migration. Off the coast of Scotland in the Hebrides range, we had a multinational ballistic missile defense exercise going on with the Surface Action Group there. And again, everybody playing their part, Maybe I can't consummate the engagement with a high-end missile, but hey, I had the initial detect, and I handed that data off to somebody who eventually ended up shooting. But it was a very collaborative engagement, a very collaborative exercise. And not only did they hit a ballistic missile, but there were two anti-ship cruise missiles that were all going at them simultaneously. And they stitched together at the very high end of warfare to partner together. So there's opportunities throughout the spectrum, from the high end to the low end. And we just need to make sure that we're not missing any opportunities to partner together. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I got time for one more question, and you have it, ma'am.
Hi, Yasmin Tajday with National Defense Magazine. I wanted to push you on the question about RIMPAC in China. Obviously, they've been invited. Do you think it's likely they will come? And what would that do for relations between the U.S. and China? Yesterday we heard Admiral Swift talk, and he said there's great angst in the region and uncertainty. So what would have China being there, what would that mean for those countries? Is that a show of goodwill? And what would you want to see out of them coming?
Right. Well, as everything, a relationship with a nation as complex as China is not one-dimensional, right? And so, why we have tremendous concerns And excuse me, there's certainly some uncertainty, rising uncertainty and anxiety about what's going on in the South China Sea. There are a number of areas where China seems to advocate and behave very much in accordance with international norms and laws. And so going forward, it's not kind of a one-size-fits-all. In those areas where we continue to partner with China, consistent with advocating for behavior that is supportive of the international rules, norms, laws that have made everybody in that region prosperous, right, over the last 70 years, including China, right? They prospered and have grown under that exact same rule set. Open architecture, it's ordered, but it's an open architecture order. We want to continue to advocate for that. I have a kind of a running conversation with my counterpart in the People's Liberation Army Navy. I think that's very helpful so that we can, have those hard conversations that we need to have about resolving that uncertainty and anxiety, expressing our concerns, but also looking for those productive ways that we can partner. So, it's, I think we want to fight the temptation to collapse this thing to one dimension. We've got to be smart about it. I don't mean to be, saying that we're naive in any sense, but neither can we be kind of one-dimensional about it. So I hope that gets at your question. All right. Thanks very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's express our appreciation for Admiral Richardson. So I can tell you in a short summary, done good, exclamation point. Thank you very much for your agility and your kindness to step in and do a wonderful role. There's another opportunity. We have the town hall meeting at lunch today. Admiral Stavridis will have a chance to speak to the Sea Service Chiefs. We're really looking forward to that discussion too, sir. We have a book here that's done by the USN Press, Practice to Deceive, Learning Curves of Military Deception Planners, and a bookmark from AFCEA, sign of a very large offering in press for USNI. Sir, thank you again for being with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.